Fawn Marie Cox Case 30 Sal Bod Halhua Kansas City, Missouri Minrin, Wali 16 Sal Kifon, Marie Cox ko as jagah penuksan pohanchaya, Jahan wo sabs yada mefus ani chahi thi apni garmain. July 26, 1989, Kofon ni Worlds of Fun Amusement Park Main, Rot 11 Badge Tak Tokkom Ki. Uskbod Wogar I Sida, Apni, Cameraman, Gai, Orsogay, Kunki, Agel, Dinbi, Kam Tha, Usi, Rot, Jab, Uska, Puragar Soraha Tha, Kisi Niusk Skamraki Kidki Todkar Andaguskar Aspar Hamlakia Usk Sath Galat Kamkia or Usk Galagan. Dia, Ugly Subahuska Alarambajta Raha, Likin Wo Yuti Nahi, Uski Mar or Choti Bain Alarm Band Khan Gay, Tuan Hein Fon Ki Losh Mili. US Rot Kisi Ni Kuch Nahi Suna. Kunki gar ke air conditioner chal rehi the likanuski. Bainkor, yad hai ka uskadog joa swakt, pregnant tha, kuch ziada, bakain tha. USS wakt unlogan ni samja k the pregnancy ki waja say hi. Sharu main do teenage lakan ko is case main malzim banea gaya tha. Likan ek, ahem gawa ni bod main apna bayan wapas laleo akaha k usanjut bola tha. Is wajah seun donoka. Hila filzamgir gaya, leakin forensic experts, niaswakt kuch sabutai katha kithe, jesse ka bodily fluids, joas wakt to surf blood type compare kan ke lycom 8th, magarajki advanced science ki wajase yes sabut sabs, important bangay. 2000 kbod, KCPD Kansas City Police Department, K scientists ni DNA profile te ki anhi fluids, say, or IC National CODIS database main upload kia leakin. Koi match nahi mila fawn k garwalan k lai ya gam or jawabi kamoshi bahut dardnok sabithu. Police wale bahar salan se milt rehi naye. Leads explore kart rehi lakan sab bakar gaya. Job to science adala rasta nahidi haya 2020 main operation legend Kansas City aya jism federal. Resources die gay KCPD KO. Is say unhine wo. DNA tests kawain kamoka mila jo payhal financial reasons kiwaja. Say possible nahi thay. Captain Ben Caldwell ni kohaya case ham subkadil kochugaya. Fornek masum bochi thejiska kotel uskapni bistar pa hua. Isin humari detectives or officers ko hilakarak dia. Whom I say kabi nahi bulsokt. 30 sulbod advanced. Genetic genealogy techniques kazarie forn merakax kakatil pachana gaya or forn kayo Unsolved mila. Captain Caldwell ni kaha ki unhonhar lead kapicha kia or petal whale detectives ni is case par apni yon logadi. Jab genetic genealogy ki DNA results of 230 salbat asal mulzim samnea aya Donald Cox Jr. Jofon ka cousin tha. Donald Key Mott 2006 main ek overdose say hui thi. Jisa Pele suspicious samja gaya tha. Likin bod main patachala kekasini use kotal nahi kia tha. A US whacked medical examiner neoska blood samples sample ka rakatha. Crime lab neos preserved. Blood sample QA DNA extract kia or uska kabla 1989 kia crime scene say miln whale bodily fluid kia DNA profile say ki wopur mets kargaya. Captain Caldwell ni kahaki yesgar or yeskitki kachanov kia gaya thabina kisi ko patachale ona or nikoljana. Yesab, Islai Mumkin Thakunki, Fon Kalyantata. The 10th of November 2020. Ko detectives adalah Fon Kawalidain. Ko bataya. Wo udasi mente. Lekin sukon mila kahir kaar, jawab milge. Unhon kabi yes socha bithaki unka rishtadar hi zimadar hoshakta hai. Diane. Maxwell Ek 25 Salki single, Math Jiska Chota Baited Tha. The 14th of December 1969 KO Wo Apni, Shift K Lai Office Jarahithi USN, Apni Red Ford Mustang Parking Lot Main, Lagaya Leakin Cabby Andanahi Gay, Lagpag 130 Bajek, Homeless Shacks, Willie Bell Nideka, Kek, Joan Mad Ek Purain Shacks Se Nikul Raha, Hi Joas Parking Lot KPAs Thur, Use Shekua or Jab Use, Asan Anda John Kardeka 2 Ekarat, Bondi Hui Thi, Diane.usne US Madid. Manji Leakin Willie Police say Hubog Gaya, Bodmain Usan Police Ko Kol Kia, Leakin Tab Tak Diane Kimot, Hochuki Thi, Usk Jizampar Ek Choti, Si Choku Kihot Thi, Jo Uski Artery, Tak Chali Gay Thi or Uski, Yon Lagaves, Usa Salt, Kia Gayathar or Uska Galagont, Dia Gayathar, Uska Purse, Shakmain, Mila Leakin, Uska Pays or Keys, La Lai Gathe, Police Neoski Kar Ek Mildor Dundli or Fingerprints, Kialoa Ek. Right palm print Bimila 1969 Main Sab Kutch Manual Hotatha or Houston Main Odd Million say Ziada fingerprint records they. Islay Unhine Match Nahi Mil Dayan by David Surf 20 Sal Katha, USN Apni Beyond K Beta Ko Gotla Lalia or Wadakia Ko USK Beyond K Cattle Ko Dunhiga, USN Apni Zindagi Law Enforcement Ko Dedicate Car D, Salin K Com K Bod, Jabwo 37 Kahua, 20 Texas Rangers Kahisabana Ek, Elite Police Force, US Whacked TAC Automated Fingerprint Matching System Houston Mainlag Chukatha, David Nee, Diane KK Semail, Purane Fingerprints KO System Main, Dubara Czech Kia Leaking Koi Match Nahi Mula 17 or Salguza Gay, AB Diane Kawalid, 90 Sal Katha, or Usian Apni Bait Se Kahaka Yusmarn Se Pahel Surf, Ekchis Chahi Diane Kakatil Kapata. David had never given up on his sister's case. Decades after the brutal crime, he enlisted the help of his close friend, Detective Jim Ramsey of the Houston Police Department. Together they headed to the evidence room, hoping to retrieve the clothing recovered from the original crime scene, but what they found was shocking. The clothes, the photographs, and much of the collected evidence had all been discarded. Even worse, the fingerprint evidence was missing from the case file, apparently misfiled during the years it sat as a cold case. Ramsey and David began a painstaking months-long search through the archives. Finally, buried deep within the cold case files, they found the missing fingerprints. By now, it was 2003, and forensic technology had significantly advanced. The FBI's Integrated Automated Fingerprint Identification System, IAFIS, had been operational for 4 years. Ramsey first ran the prints through Texas's own fingerprint database, but no matches came up. He then submitted them to the FBI's IAFIS, which returned 20 potential hits. Expert examiners compared each manually. One match stood out. It belonged to 58-year-old James Ray Davis, a career criminal with a long prison record. 4 separate fingerprints were identified as his: right index, middle, ring, and right palm, likely from when he'd shut the door of the victim's Ford Mustang. At the time of the crime, Davis had just been released from prison only 9 days earlier and was living along the Texas-Arkansas border. Detective Ramsey knocked on his door and questioned him. At first, Davis denied everything, but once confronted with the fingerprint evidence, he confessed. He pleaded guilty in court. On November 24, 2003, 34 years after the murder, James Ray Davis was sentenced to life in prison. David had finally fulfilled the promise he made to solve his sister's case, giving their grieving father long-awaited peace. Davis died in prison in 2007. Minnie and Edward Morin, a son's promise fulfilled in another case. Nearly 30 years of grief and mystery ended with long-awaited justice. On Christmas Eve in 1985, the bodies of 83-year-old Wilhelmina Minnie Marine and her husband, 81-year-old Edward Ed Marine, were discovered in a wooded area of Chehalis, Washington. The elderly couple had been brutally murdered. The Marines were beloved members of the Ethel, Washington community, where they owned and operated a Christmas tree farm. On December 19, 1985, Minnie was preparing to host a church ladies' luncheon at their home, but when guests arrived, no one answered the door, and strangely, it was locked. The Marines were known for keeping their home open to all. Worried, the guests began calling around. Eventually, someone gained access to the home, and what they found was deeply disturbing. Drawers had been pulled open, papers were scattered everywhere, and bank statements were tossed across the floor. Minnie's purse was hidden under a newspaper behind the couch. The blinds behind the Christmas tree, which should have been opened during the festive season, were shut. There were no signs of forced entry. Investigators quickly formed a theory. The Marines had been kidnapped. The couple was not only known for their Christmas tree business, their son, Dennis Maureen, also owned one of the largest logging companies in the Pacific Northwest. This led police to suspect that money might have been the motive. The next day, a witness spotted the couple's car parked in a mall parking lot. Inside, police found large bloodstains and shotgun pellets. The keys were still in the ignition. Based on the amount of blood, investigators believed at least one of the victims had been killed inside the vehicle then. On December 24, 5 days after they vanished, the bodies of Minnie and Edward were discovered in a remote, wooded area in They had both been shot. It took nearly 30 years, but justice finally came. A son's quiet vow to one day find out what happened to his parents was kept. Justice for Minnie and Ed Morin, a son's lifelong vow. Autopsy revealed a chilling truth. Wilhelmina Minnie Morin and her husband, Edward Ed Morin, had been shot inside their car with a shotgun. Their bodies were then dragged to a wooded area where a passerby discovered them. The scene left little doubt. Ed had suffered head trauma, likely beaten before being killed. Drag marks from the road to the spot confirmed the bodies had been moved, but not well hidden. Their son, Dennis Morin, was devastated. At the funeral, he placed his hand on their casket and made a vow. "I will find out who did this." In 1985, DNA testing wasn't yet available, and investigators had no fingerprints to work with. The case began with almost nothing, except a receipt found in Ed's pocket. The receipt led detectives to a local bank. A teller there remembered speaking with Ed on the morning of December 19th, at 9:30 a.m. He had called to say he needed to withdraw $8,500. When Ed arrived, the funds weren't ready yet. He said he'd wait in the car. Once the money was prepared, the teller walked outside to hand it over. Ed quickly stepped out and met her halfway, clearly not wanting her to approach the vehicle, though he didn't seem distressed. She noticed there were other people sitting in the car with him. This clue supported the theory that the Marines were abducted by force and that robbery may have been a motive. By January, police were working with composite sketches, trying to identify a suspicious man seen near the Yardbirds Mall parking lot. Suspicion briefly fell on the couple's grandson, Mike Hadler, known for his short temper and past legal troubles. Mike was questioned, furious at the implication. He took and passed a polygraph test. With the immediate family cleared, the investigation expanded. Detectives turned to the seasonal workers employed at the Morin's Christmas tree farm, but every worker had a solid alibi, and the lead dried up. Then, in 1995, years after the murders, police received a startling phone call. A man claimed his own brother was involved in the murders. According to him, his brother had killed his wife's grandparents and stolen their life savings. Investigators launched an undercover sting. 2 detectives posed as mobsters and arranged a meeting with the suspect. They told him they were looking to recruit someone with a violent past and had heard he was responsible for a double murder. If he wanted in, he'd have to tell them the story. The suspect eagerly recounted a tale that eerily mirrored the Marine murders, but there was a major inconsistency. He claimed he used a .22 Magnum pistol, not a shotgun, which was the actual murder weapon. As the conversation went on, more details didn't line up. The detectives quickly realized he was fabricating the story for street credibility, using the infamous crime to impress supposed criminals. By 1992, new tips began to roll in ones that pointed to different suspects: Rick and John Riff, 2 brothers with violent reputations and deep ties to the area. The Riff Bros, long shadows over a cold case for years. Tips poured in naming Rick and John Riff, known substance dealers from a neighboring town, as the likely perpetrators in the murder of Minnie and Ed Marine. But despite mounting suspicion, arrests remained elusive. There was no murder weapon, no confirmed link between the brothers and the Marines, and no reliable witness testimony to tie them to the crime. Still, detectives harbored doubts. Multiple sources had reported seeing the Riff brothers near the Morin residence in the days leading up to the murders. But another major obstacle soon arose. In 1987, just 2 years after the killings, Rick and John abruptly moved to Alaska. Their relocation placed them beyond the reach of local investigators, and the case once again went cold. That changed in 2002 when Dennis Morin reignited public interest by offering a $10,000 reward for any information that could lead to the arrest of those responsible for his mother and stepfather's deaths. The incentive triggered a new wave of tips, and this time they delivered. By 2012, previously silent witnesses began to come forward. With renewed confidence and more distance from the crime, they shared long-held secrets. The evidence once again pointed squarely at Rick and John Riff. In the summer of that year, detectives traveled to King Salmon, Alaska, hoping to make arrests, but they were 1 week too late. John Riff had died just days earlier. Rick Riff, 53 at the time, was taken into custody and extradited back to Washington. During his trial, multiple witnesses testified that both Rick and John had used a friend's shotgun to carry out the crime. Even more disturbing, they had openly bragged about kidnapping the elderly couple and fatally shooting them. When asked why they never came forward earlier, several witnesses admitted they had stayed silent out of fear, terrified the brothers might come after them too. On November 18, 2013, Rick Riff was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of first-degree kidnapping, 1 count of first-degree robbery, and 1 count of burglary. He showed no emotion in court and remained silent throughout the proceedings. His attorney stated that Riff continued to claim innocence and felt no remorse. An appeal followed, but it was denied 2 years later. He is now serving a prison sentence of nearly 103 years in 2014. Riff was handed an additional 6-year sentence after being convicted of indecent abuse involving a 10-year-old girl. During the 1980s, Dennis Morin reflected on the long fight for justice, saying, "It's been 26 years and 7 months. I thought about it at least 3 or 4 times a day. Closure will never come, but at least the guilty one was caught." Susan Schwartz, the cold case cracked by a playing card. In an innovative effort to solve cold cases, the Washington Department of Corrections distributed decks of playing cards to inmates, each card featuring details of an unsolved crime. Susan Schwartz was featured as the Queen of Hearts. This unusual approach led to a breakthrough when, in 2011, prison inmate Sherwood Cave Knight recognized Susan's case from the cards and came forward with crucial information about his half-brother, Greg Johnson. The tip from Knight directed investigators to a former girlfriend of Johnson, who revealed she was present on the night of the crime and witnessed Johnson shoot Susan. She provided independent details about the crime scene and surrounding neighborhood that matched the case perfectly. About 2 weeks before Susan's murder, Her best friend had returned to Washington and spent a lot of time with her. The friend was going through a breakup and was debating whether to reconcile with her ex, the same suspect, Greg Johnson. She told investigators that Susan had urged her to leave him because she disliked him. The friend also disclosed that she had left Johnson due to his violent nature, previous involvement in an armed robbery, and because he already had a girlfriend. When questioned, Johnson claimed he was fishing in Everett on the day of the crime, but this alibi could not be fully verified. Back in 1986, detectives had interviewed Johnson in prison, where he was serving time for armed robbery. His brother was also incarcerated for a similar crime. During that interview, Johnson admitted to dropping off his brother and to unidentified individuals for a burglary. He further confessed that his brother later admitted to ending Susan's life. Johnson, who was 26 at the time of the murder, was arrested on April 22, 2011, at his Seattle home and charged. His girlfriend at the time had initially remained silent, fearing for her safety and that of her family. She later recalled the horrific crime. Johnson had grabbed Susan, a young woman fresh out of the shower, tied her up, and shot her in the head. When he looked up, Susan was still standing, so he shot her again. She remembered Johnson saying, with the gun still in his hand, "It is that easy. This is what happens to people who exploit my life." The girlfriend had already endured Johnson's violence and threats against her family, which silenced her out of fear that she or her loved ones would be harmed initially. Johnson's bail was set at $1 million but was raised to $5 million during a hearing on April 25. Johnson had an extensive criminal record including multiple robberies and drug-related convictions. In January 2012, the then 58-year-old ex-con pleaded guilty, finally admitting responsibility for Susan's murder. On March 23, 2012, a Snohomish County judge sentenced him to a minimum of 24 years in prison. Susan's father, Henry Schwartz, expressed relief and joy at the long-awaited arrest. He was eager to share the news with his son Gary, saying, "When she passed, I wrapped her memory